All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. Now, guess what? Dana White is confirming he's going to make KHAMZAT CHIMAEV and Nate Diaz. At least he's going to 100% put this thing together if he can. Now, KHAMZAT wants that fight. Nate Diaz, I would assume, wants that fight. Nate Diaz wants big fights. Here's the deal, though. I'm going to tell you exactly why this fight's getting made, though, because ultimately, no fights get made if Dana doesn't want them to get made. And so I'm going to do the thing where I take you inside the inner sanctum where they make these decisions. And I'm going to tell you why Dana wants to make this fight so much. So if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. Now, just to recap, in case you guys have been living under a rock for the last week, KHAMZAT CHIMAEV, after coming off of one of the most fire-hot starts of all time, he was fighting Li Lingjiang at UFC 267. Thus far, he had taken one strike in his first 3 fights. And Li Jingliang is an incredibly underrated smashing machine from China. And KHAMZAT made him look like it was, a walk through the playground, fighting and annihilating him. He picked him up. He walked him over to Dana White, was telling Dana White that he would beat Brock Lesnar while he was, effortlessly smashing Li Jingliang and then ultimately strangled him to unconsciousness. Where the referee, pulled him off. Otherwise, obviously, he would have killed Li Jingliang. That's one thing I want people to really start to think about. When someone gets choked, right? Like they get choked to death, choked to unconsciousness, or another person taps out. If they don't let go, the other person dies, okay? Like, just so we're clear, that when you're fighting in mixed martial arts and you're in the cage and you choke someone and they tap and you don't let go, or the ref doesn't tell you to let go, if you don't let go, they don't ever wake up, okay? So, that's why I like to think about the sport like that. It's not because, I would want that to happen. It just demonstrates the level that you're operating at if you're out in the jungle. You know what I mean? And so, again, for the 4th time, he has annihilated a UFC fighter with little to no effort. And then after the fight, he said he wants a huge fight. He wants Nate Diaz. He called out Nate Diaz specifically in the post-fight. Now, one thing that we've talked about a million times on here is when you are going into a fight, right? You have to prepare yourself for said fight. You need to prepare yourself for the post-fight. You need to have a plan. What am I going to say into the microphone after I win this fight, right? What am I going to say? What am I going to, because you had a fight up until the moment that fight ended. Now you need to hype your next fight. Chael is bulletproof on that, right? Chael says a lot of things. He does a lot of videos. I love Chael's channel. But one thing that he is the most credible, bulletproof source of information on is the fact that you need to be picking your opponent and then hyping that fight immediately after. And certain guys do a great job of it, other guys don't. KHAMZAT CHIMAEV clearly does an excellent job. He calls everybody out, basically. But he called out Nate Diaz in the post-fight, right? And so it's obvious why KHAMZAT would want that fight, because Nate Diaz is a huge star and he wants to take his shine. Pretty straightforward. Now, why would Dana want to make that fight? Right? Do you guys, have you guys been watching this channel long enough that you already know what I'm going to say? Let's see. Put in the comments. As a matter of fact, actually, I'm being totally serious. Right now, everybody that's been watching my channel, we'll do this on the honor system, obviously, but put in the comments why you think Dana wants to do this fight right now. And I'll start talking about it in a second. Ready? Go. Do it. Do. Okay, cool. That was enough time. So here's the deal, right? Look at the situation as it relates to the UFC. So Nate Diaz has made very clear he wants to fight his contract out, right? He wants to be done with the UFC. He wants to go box Jake Paul. That's what he wants to do. Now, when other valuable assets of the UFC have decided they wanted to fight their contract out, I would say pretty confidently none of them were as valuable as Nate Diaz. But at the same time, look, Nate Diaz is probably, if you were gonna build kind of like a rating system of how popular a fighter is versus their recent record, Nate is probably the most popular fighter of all time versus his recent wins and losses. Do you know what I'm saying? Nate's lost 3 of his last 4. Yeah, he's lost 3 of his last 4. And he's still one of the biggest stars in the UFC. Seriously, he's an incredibly valuable asset. Nick Diaz left the UFC at a certain level and he came back 10 times as popular just because of Nate, not just because of Nate. Obviously, Nate's career got launched because of Nick, but you know what I'm saying. But so if you're the UFC and you're looking at this, it's it's not like losing Francis Ngannou, right? Like if they lose Francis Ngannou, that's a much more impactful asset because Francis is in his prime. He's the heavyweight champion. He probably has a lot of wins. You know, assuming that he beat Cyril Gane and then he actually left the UFC, that's a big deal, right? That is a huge, huge deal. Like Nate, you know, they can milk a few more fights out of him. They could probably do a Masvidal fight. They could probably do a Conor McGregor fight regardless of what happens in his next fight. But like, it's not like he's got another 10 years of big fights and it's not like he's a champion. But the bottom line is this, okay? When a fighter wants to leave the UFC, what do? Okay? So like Tyron Woodley, they knew he was going to fight his contract out. Paige Van Zandt, they knew she was going to fight her contract out. What do they do on the last fight? Okay? What they normally do is they set them up to lose. Like not set them up to lose, but they put them up against someone who they think is very likely to smash their face in, right? To just absolutely whip their ass. And usually they do it with someone who doesn't necessarily have a super big name either, right? Like they don't want to give them a big platform because if they do win, like here is the equation, right? They want to make sure they have the highest probability that person loses because they don't want them to be valuable so that another organization can use them to gain market share against the UFC. Okay, this is not like a personal thing. They're not being vindictive. This is just business, right? Like this is just stone business. If a fighter leaves the UFC, what they're going to do is they are going to become a weapon that's used against the UFC in the war of business, right? And so if they know they can't retain them, then they want to devalue them so that they're less damaging when they're being used by the other side. So how they do that is they set them up to lose, and then they set them up with the lowest notoriety person that they think will really put it on them. So like, you know, Paige Van Zandt, it was Amanda Ribas, right? At the time, she didn't have a huge name, but they knew she'd smash her face in and destroy her. I'm pretty sure it was Amanda Ribas. And then in the case of Tyron Woodley, they gave him Luque, right? And Luque didn't have a huge name, but, you know, is a killing machine. So if they were going to follow the same formula with Nate Diaz, they can't really because Nate Diaz is too big of a star, right? Like Nate Diaz is too big of a star for them to just kind of throw a whoever at him. I mean, they theoretically they could do the Luque thing. I mean, Nate Diaz is asking for Luque, but what I think is going on is this, right? In this case, the reason why they're breaking the mold and they're going to give Nate someone who has a huge profile is I think they don't think there's a chance in a million years that Nate Diaz is going to beat KHAMZAT CHIMAEV. I think that they think that KHAMZAT is going to smash Nate Diaz is going to smash him. And so they get to shine their little new diamond and make him as bright as possible on Nate's way out so they get the, you know, I mean, listen, like, again, I want to make sure that I'm being very clear about this. This is not being vindictive to Nate Diaz. Like, anytime I talk about the business, I try to make this very, very clear. It might sound like them being vindictive. It's not, okay? Business is a war, okay? Like if you look at business the way that Dana does, or the way that I do, or the way that lots of other people, business is a fucking war. Like you're fighting, like you are battling these guys. That's why guys like Dana are successful, okay? You're fighting all the time. And the fighters, while he has, you know, Nate and Dana have a great relationship. Like, I mean, if you look behind the scenes, like those guys have a great relationship. And there's friendship and then there's business. I just was talking about this with one of my business partners about how like you have to be able to separate friendship from business. Like you can have amazing relationships with guys, but when it comes to your business, you have to be making decisions based on strategy. And when it comes to this kind of thing, having someone come in and smash the shit out of Nate Diaz, I'm not saying that that's for sure going to happen. I'm just saying in their mind, having someone smash Nate Diaz is just business because then it makes Nate less valuable when he tries to go fight and build another organization. And with KHAMZAT CHIMAEV, he is one of the most valuable assets they've ever had, like in terms of like as an upcoming guy. He's a future Conor McGregor, a future Khabib. Like he's that level. Absolutely 100%. If anybody disagrees with that, you have not been watching this sport correctly because that is what he is. KHAMZAT CHIMAEV is a future Conor McGregor, future Khabib if he keeps winning, period. And so when you look at KHAMZAT, you're like, okay, do we want to give him a title shot right now? It's kind of clogged up there. You don't really know what's going to happen because straight up, like, again, and I'm going to come back to this. It's all about timing and strategy around the belt with this kind of thing because here's the deal. You got Usman fighting Colby, okay? If Colby wins that fight, okay? If Colby wins that fight, KHAMZAT is not fighting next under any circumstances. Because if Masvidal wins, I will say this until I'm blue in the face. If Colby wins and Masvidal wins, barring something weird happening, they are going to do everything they can to make that fight happen for the belt. Masvidal, Colby. That's what they're going to try to do. And if Masvidal doesn't win, right, then they'll do the Usman trilogy. You can't, there's no way that you can justify not giving the rematch immediately to Usman unless it's the Masvidal grudge match, because everyone's like, are you kidding me? These guys gotta fight. Like that will supersede, but that's the only way. Any other scenario, if Colby wins, Usman's fighting him again. And it's possible they just give him a rematch anyway. I don't think so. I think they'll do the Masvidal and Colby one. But then if Usman wins, right? If Usman wins and Leon wins, dude, Leon, I mean, look, I said let's jump the line, but I'm saying that out of like, that's just a fight I want to see. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Leon. I just really want to see Khamzat fight Usman. And it is a tough sell to have a guy go from unranked, beat one guy at ranked 11 and jump into a title shot. Like, I understand that. So you do need to get him a fight or two before he, gets a title shot. And a fight with Nate Diaz, you get to literally take the shine on Nate Diaz and really pour it on Khamzat. And if you look at the matchup itself, that is an incredibly awesome matchup. Because here's the thing, seriously, think about it. Like, look at this. Nate Diaz, I've never seen anyone intentionally take Nate Diaz down unless they were stupid and they got submitted, right? Like, I did no research before I said that, actually. I don't remember it recently, at least, that anyone took him down on purpose. Like, Nate Diaz is a legit Cesar Gracie murder machine black belt on the ground, right? And I've seen him submit tons of guys, tons and tons and tons of guys. But is he going to be able to work jiu-jitsu while he's got Khamzat Chimaev on his back smashing his head? Who knows? I would love to find out. And then on the feet, Khamzat is much faster. I mean, we haven't seen that much of his stand-up, but look, if I'm looking at this fight and I'm being totally objective and I'm completely disconnecting myself from the fact that Caesar's my dude and the Diaz by extension are my fucking dudes, then stylistically, Khamzat is a very fucking scary matchup. He's a scary matchup for everybody, but Nate is so tough that it's one of those things where you could see this fight playing out with Khamzat beating the fucking shit out of Nate Diaz. Maybe. Or maybe Nate Diaz rolls him and fucking submits him. You know what I mean? Like, it could happen. If Khamzat tries to take him down, he makes a mistake, Nate grabs an arm, or whatever. There's a dozen ways Nate can finish the fight. But I think if you really think through it and what the most likely outcome is, God, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I'm sorry. I can't help it, dude. I think Khamzat beats everybody, though. I don't think there's anybody who's going to beat him, dude. I think the most likely scenario is it is a long form, punishment. But I am a hardcore Khamzat believer right now. It is what it is. But that's why Dana White wants to make this fight, and that is why I think they will. If Nate will take the fight, I would imagine they'll do it. And especially think about it like this, dude. Khamzat could fight tomorrow, dude. You know what I mean? Like, Khamzat, he could fight next week. He's ready. He could even come in as a replacement if Colby or Usman got hurt. Wow, can you imagine if that happened? Like, if something happened this week and all of a sudden they're all, for the interim belt, it's Khamzat versus Colby. That would be so bananas, dude. But anyway, that's what I got. So, by the way, anybody who's watched this far, let me tell you a little story about YouTube. So, I noticed that my views were going down, and I always notice there's this correspondence. So you self-rate your videos, right? You're like, yeah, this is okay for monetization, whatever. If you make a mistake and they decide afterwards that you violated the thing, then they kind of push your views down. So yesterday I did the one about Sean Strickland, coming out as a guy who would shave his head, because he believed in that ideology when he was growing up, and then he figured out that it was evil and wrong. I did a video about that. And they banged me for a little bit of that, said that I misrated the thing and then suppressed the video. And so, I don't know. I think that video was really good. If you haven't watched the video that I put up yesterday because you haven't seen it, give it a run, dude. It's a really good video about Sean Strickland talking about his history as a person who was very adverse to people who didn't look like him. And then how he grew out of that and learned that his ideology was wrong. This is the first time I've ever gotten actually angry at YouTube. I was not angry, just annoyed. I'm talking to their people. I'm like, dude, I literally am commenting on an interview that a famous UFC fighter gave, and he's talking about how he believed in this evil ideology and how fighting is what got him to see how stupid and evil, like being a, supremacist is. How could that possibly be violating any guidelines? I'm saying, like, I'm agreeing it's evil and nonsense. Anyway, so if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. Like I said, me and Google are cool. This, whoever manually reviewed that video, though, I stringently disagree with their assessment. So anyway, love you guys. Share this video, share the other video. Peace.